fẹ́ máa wò, ọ̀rọ̀ tó jẹ tí ń gbèsè mo fẹ́ gbọ́, ètò lóríṣiríṣi wọ́n wà lọ́lọ́kan òjọ̀kan, ìròyìn tó kojú òṣùwọ̀n àtàwọn ọ̀rọ̀ àgbọ́ fi kọ́gbọ́n, eré wọlé fún tẹ̀rù tọmọ tèwe tàgbà ẹ má fi para. Ètò láti fi mo fẹ́ máa wò, ọ̀rọ̀ tó jẹ tí ń gbèsè mo fẹ́ gbọ́, ètò lóríṣiríṣi wọ́n wà lọ́lọ́kan òjọ̀kan, ìròyìn tó kojú òṣùwọ̀n àtàwọn ọ̀rọ̀ àgbọ́ fi kọ́gbọ́n, eré wọlé fún tẹ̀rù tọmọ tèwe tàgbà ẹ má fi para. Àdànà kú kọjá mórí nǹkan fèrè, bàbá rere káwí parí. BGI TV, we are the pace setter. Bàbá gbàgede ìmọ̀ tẹlifíṣọ̀n station tí dòde.
Mo kí wa o, mo kí wa pa kú dédé àsìkò yìí, àsìkò bójú ọjọ́ ti rí. Ẹ gbọ́, ẹ má jẹ́ kí n waste time wa láàárọ̀ yìí. Díẹ̀ ẹ wà láì mú fọlọ́ǹbúra. Ẹni tí ò bá tètè join moving train nísìn lóní gbogbo ojú tó bá ń wò mí káàkiri ayé, bàbá rẹ nìkan tó kù tí ò rẹ́dì láti join moving train, ọkọ̀ ti ṣí o, ọkọ̀ ti ṣí. Àti kíní àti kejì ó ti fojú hàn pé ọmọ Yorùbá ṣetán wípé dandan sẹ́ asáfẹ́ autonomy. Lóòótọ́ o, àwa ti wá o, àwa ò support regional because regional yẹn the time has passed. Ẹ ṣá jẹ́ káwa Yorùbá ṣe báyìí, ẹ jẹ́ ká ṣe bá wa láì. Crusade yẹn ti ń débi tó yẹ kó dé, ó ti ń dé kọ̀kọ̀, ó ti ń dé gbangba. It is now eating, penetrating internally. Mo dìdí kó wálé nìgan ni mo yẹ sọ pé fídíò yìí máa ní part 1 part 2. Láàárọ̀ yìí again, láàárọ̀ very early this morning, ó ní bàbá wa Ṣẹ́gun Ọdẹ́gbàmí YouTube channel wọn jẹ́ ẹ lọ search fún Eagle 7 Sport radio station. Mo tún sọ bá mi gbé èso iwájú, Eagle 7 Sport radio station ó ní kíní yẹn jẹ́ lórí YouTube. Ẹ lọ má tiẹ̀ ní kán fi logo yẹn síbẹ̀ kẹ́yìn náà lè rí. Ẹ lọ wo channel yẹn, ẹ lọ máa bá mi subscribe síbẹ̀ pẹ̀lú nǹkan tí bàbá Ṣẹ́gun Ọdẹ́gbàmí tí wọ́n ṣe lénìí. Now tí mo wá fẹ́ sọ lórí fídíò yẹn ni pé tẹ́lẹ̀tẹ́lẹ̀ irú àwọn ẹni bẹ́ẹ̀ wọ́n máa ń sá láti associate ara wọn mọ́rú àwọn àti Sunday Igboho àti bàbá Bánjí Akíntóyè o, àwọn media houses àtàwọn míì tó jẹ́ wíìsùwù ní Nàìjíríà wọ́n fẹ́ associate mọ́ wọn tẹ́lẹ̀ because wọ́n rí crusade yẹn bíi betrayal sí Nàìjíríà, wọ́n rí wọn bíi tout, wọ́n rí wọn bíi criminal. Any media house tẹ́ bá rí tó bá pè wọ́n wá nígbà yẹn ó fẹ́ wá fi wọ́n ṣẹlẹ́yà ni, ó fẹ́ wá against nǹkan tó ń ṣe ni. But of recent a rí pé information yẹn ti wá ń kárí àwọn elite náà tí wọ́n jẹ́ bóyá bíi ká sọ pé civil servant tàbáwọn tí wọ́n ò sí nídìí jẹgúdújẹrá tí wọ́n fẹ́ òdodo, ojú tí wọ́n náà ti wá ń là. It is now it has becoming clearer now to them. Ó ti wá ń yí àwọn náà pé ìtàn guys yìí sá ń sọ yìí òótọ́ ọ̀rọ̀ ṣá ni. Gbogbo ayé nísìn ni wọ́n ti fẹ́ di Tinubu sí, lòun náà ti fẹ́ di ààrẹ láyé ti rí. Kí dẹ̀ ló fà fún iṣẹ́ Fúlàní ni. They are truncating all that mass effort so that pé àlè against 2027 Fúlàní àtún lè padà sórí oyè. Làwa Yorùbá ṣe sọ pé no more one Nigeria látọ̀dọ̀ wa. Information yẹn ti wá kárí ojú everybody ti ń là, everybody ti wá ní wọ́n nínú ọ̀tá àwọn tó ń kígbe bẹ́ẹ̀ náà ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ rí bọ́ì tí mo gbé wájọ́ ẹ̀ ara àwọn tó ń kígbe bẹ́ẹ̀ náà nílẹ̀ Ìgbò. So everybody ti ń là sí pé anything called one Nigeria is no more working. Àwọn kan ó yé wọn síbi regional, ó yé àwa kan pé outrightly ká form country wa ni. Èyíkéyìí ètò òwúwájú ó ní Yorùbá nation because it is true total autonomy la fi lè ní àṣẹ lórí region wa, la fi lè ní àṣẹ lórí ìran wa tí ń ṣe ìran Yorùbá. Tọ́gbà bá gba total autonomy sìn tá a bá sì wà ní region we are still under Nigeria. Tá a bá wà ní region èmi gan tẹ́lẹ̀ tí advocate sí regional yẹn bọ́ mo wá jókòó mo wo sàkún ìtó dájú ó ní kí Fúlàní má ever free láti kọ̀kù gìrì wọ region wa ìmọ̀ tábàdẹ̀ wà ní regional wa wọlé because nínú òfin regional Nigerians is still Nigerians. Ẹ lè ní kó gba físà kó tó wọ region yín, ẹ lè ní kó má kó máàlù wọ region yín. Ọ̀dọ́ tá a bá lẹ́nu débẹ̀ o wọ́n lè pàṣẹ pé ní region ti wá yìí o àwọn ò fẹ́ kí máàlù kọjá bẹ̀ tó bá jẹ́ regional. Bọ́ lọ́wọ́lọ́wọ́ yìí ó ti hàn sí gbogbo ọmọ Yorùbá pé àjọṣepọ̀ yẹn ò ṣiṣẹ́. Ó yà mí lẹ́nu nígbà tí mo rí bàbá pẹ̀lú Ṣẹ́gun Ọdẹ́gbàmí, mo rò pé Ṣẹ́gun Ọdẹ́gbàmí lóòótọ́ ọmọ Yorùbá ni, mo ti rú àwọn ẹni báyìí tẹ́lẹ̀, gbogbo wọn yẹn ojú wọn ti wá ńlá ńsìn, ojú everybody ti ńlá, everybody ó ti ń yé wa sìn pé àfi káwa Yorùbá papọ̀ kájọ dìmáàndì fún nǹkan kan náà irrespective of who you are. Ẹnì kọ́kọ́ sí kọ́mẹ̀ntì lánàá, ẹ jẹ́ kí n clear area ẹ̀. Ẹnìyàn ní ẹ̀ ń tanra yín ni, ṣé olóṣèlú náà kọ́ ló tún máa wáṣọ lórí yín tẹ́ bá tiẹ̀ gba Yorùbá nation. Mo rẹ́rìn gan. Ẹ jẹ́ sọ kinní kan fún yín, kinní mi ni ó yàtọ̀ sí kinní wa ni. Ẹ̀yin tẹ́ ẹ kọ sí kọ́mẹ̀ntì ni mò ń bá wí nù lórí mo rí lórí YouTube lánàá pé yes it is true, àrí gbogbo effort yín àwọn èèyàn fẹ́ gba ẹgbẹ́ ó ti ń fẹ́ bọ́ sí lóòótọ́ bẹ̀ tó bá bọ́ sí kìí ṣe olóṣèlú náà ni. Nigeria with corruption ẹ ṣe àwọn ọmọ Nàìjíríà náà kọ́ ló ṣe máa wá rúùlù òótọ́ ni. Bet mo tuntun sọ kinní mi ni ó yàtọ̀ sí kinní wa ni. When we get there will be written constitution. Ṣebí bákan làwọn lọ́wọ́ ṣe tí ò kówó wa ná. Ṣerú wọn ti wá tán lórílẹ̀ ni, ṣé kò sí irú wọn mọ́ nílẹ̀ Yorùbá ni? Wọ́n ò fún wọn láyè láti sọ̀rọ̀ ni. Irú wọn ni wọ́n bá jó lórí. Olóṣèlú báwo? Rárá o. Irú wọn ni wọ́n máa ṣe olórí wa. Irú àwọn Awólọ́wọ̀ tó sì kù láyé, irú wọn sì kù bìbà. Ó dáa, ẹ wo very dark man, ta ló mọ̀ pẹ̀lú ẹ̀ wà Nàìjíríà? Tí wọ́n bá sọ̀rọ̀ Nigerians generally wọ́n ní we are all corrupt. Ṣé gbogbo ala corrupt? Bẹ́ẹ̀ yóò bá yín mi mo yẹra mi torí mo mọ̀ pé wọ́n ò fi àjẹbánu kọ́ èmi. Mo dẹ̀ máa ń rántí sàárè inú gbogbo tí bá fẹ́ ṣe. Irú èèyàn bẹ́ẹ̀ sì pọ̀ bíbà lórí ilẹ̀. Tọ́rọ̀kọ́rọ̀ kan tí wá bá dé sìn, gbogbo àwọn tó ti ní bad track record gbogbo everybody ti mọ̀ wọ́n. Gbogbo tó jóṣèlú ilẹ̀ Nàìjíríà Yorùbá kò sẹ́nikẹ́ni nínú wọn tó máa súnmọ́ bẹ́ẹ̀. Ta ló bá wá dààmú? Ẹnu kó iyán dàtúgún kọ́bẹ̀ dàtúnṣe ni. Òfin máa wà. Ẹ̀yin ti gbọ́ rí ìlú tí wọ́n máa sọ pé tó bá ti mú ẹ fún corruption ikú ni o. Tó bá ti mú ẹ kó kówó ìlú jẹ ikú ni. Wọ́n ṣe ní China ó dẹ̀ ṣiṣẹ́ fún wọn. Ṣé kò sí irú òfin bẹ́ẹ̀ mọ́ láyé ni? Nàìjíríà ni ò lè ṣe, ta ló sọ pé ilẹ̀ Yorùbá ò lè ṣe? Tó bá ti mú ẹ pé o dí owó ìlú kó báyìí, ẹ wo tútáwó lọ́wọ́ pa, ṣe bí simple man nìyẹn. Ó dẹ̀ lọ́lọ́dẹ̀kẹ́ ó ní àwọn sọ̀ǹgbè tí wọ́n jọ ronú bákan náà lẹ́gbẹ̀ẹ́. Kẹ́yọ̀ kan máa sọ pé láíláí kò lè ṣeé ṣe, ó ṣeé ṣe o, ó ṣeé ṣe. Irú àwọn bàbá Ọdẹ́gbàmí, irú àwọn míì bẹ́ẹ̀ ó ti ń clear sí wọn lójú. Ojú everybody ti ń là pé ẹ má jẹ́ ká tanra wa. This country can no more work as one. Ayé ìgbà kan ni one nation, ayé ìsìn different nations láwà. Ṣùgbọ́n ẹ jẹ́ fàsìkò yìí dúpẹ́ torí Yorùbá bọ̀ wọ́n ní yínníyínní kẹ́ni lè ṣe mí. Ẹ̀yin èèyàn ẹ yà mí lẹ́nu. Mo gbà pé àwọn tó jẹ́ fans mi abiyamọ tó tọ́ lọ́pọ̀lọpọ̀ yín. Ẹ ṣé gbogbo ẹ̀yin ọmọ Yorùbá òdodo, ẹ̀yin ọmọ Yorùbá tàtà. Lóòótọ́ mo gbà pé Setan ní Yorùbá. Mo gbà pé Setan ní Yorùbá. We always set pace and others follows. Ẹ ṣé gbogbo ẹ̀yin ọmọ Yorùbá òdodo, ẹ̀yin ọmọ Yorùbá tàtà. Ojú everybody ti ń là lọ́dọ̀ Ṣẹ́gun Ọdẹ́gbàmí. Mo fẹ́ ká lọ.
This is Eagle 7 Sports Radio and my guest is seated and waiting. He is the chairman of Afenifere Renewal Group. So let me welcome Honorable Olawale Osun. Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you.
You are looking truly like a Yoruba chieftain. Let me start.
Yes.
I have, people were sending me questions to ask you, and I have 20 of them loaded. And the first one is that this, they confuse Afenifere with Afenifere Renewal Group. And they say, what's the difference between these two groups? Which one is Afenifere? Which one is Afenifere Renewal Group? And then, is Afenifere Renewal Group a secret society? Is it a club? Is it a political group? What exactly is it? Over to you, sir.
Well, thank you, great mathematical. Even if it is not part of the schedule, your editorial this morning on Eric Shell and Westhoff, you may be right that maybe you are having another Westhoff in your hand. But what baffles me is that stakeholders in sports have not in the past years pushed that the Nigerian coach should be and must be a Nigerian. Otherwise, we should be hiring our governors, our executive heads from other countries. Because the truth is that if Nigerians are not good enough for that role, and they do well all over the world in chosen sports, if they are not good enough, then we are also complaining about so many things regarding executive delivery in our country. So we might as well be hiring them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great comment.
But having said that, Afenifere Renewal Group is a child of circumstance. Well, you will know that the Yoruba people are the greatest democrats in the world. And I say this with all seriousness. Between 1834 and 1883, or 1846 and 1883, Yoruba people were at war with one another. And people were wondering why the internecine war. But it had to do with the question of purity, searching for appropriate leadership, appropriate policies. They were at war until 1886. I think when the British now intervened. And I used to tell my colleagues that, that was a period when Yoruba really polished their objectives about existence in relation to what their expectations are. Whether in terms of welfare, what are their minimum expectations? That their lives must be good, that they must lead a good life. And in addition to that, is that they hated tyranny to the extent that their obas who become tyrannous, can be asked to commit suicide. So it is to that extent that Yoruba keep searching for the ideal truth. We had Afenifere. There were disputes in the leadership purpose, not in the objectives. Not with the objectives, not with the policy, not with the vision, not with the goal. As far back as 2002, 2003. And if you recall, the then leader, Papa Adesanya, may God rest his soul, a great team player. He was desirous of bringing everybody together. But then you also had the forces that were also working to tear the people apart. And sir, you will recall, I think in 2006, 2007, we had a conference which we called Reconciliation Conference at the Institute of International Affairs in Ibadan. And it was attended by all the leaders who were affected. When we decided to call that reconciliation, we were just then a bunch of younger men, middle-aged men. We are all old now. Most of my colleagues are in their 70s, 60s, and late 60s and 70s. But at that time, we were calling those babas old men. We were supposedly the younger element. So we called the conference. I just thought I should give this illustration.
Background, yes.
Background. And at IITA, we all resolved that, whatever differences existed, they were only personal, they were egoistic, managing the ego of individuals, but that the objectives are still the same with regards to the welfare expectations of Yoruba people. And in fact, one of the things that came out of the IITA crucible was the recommendation that we should have a central policy institution for Yoruba land, which we eventually did and established as Yoruba Academy. And you will also recall that Yoruba Academy, as part of its early functions, recommended the establishment of development agenda for Western Nigeria, which we sold to all Yoruba stakeholders, Yoruba executive heads of governments, and it was eventually accepted, and development agenda for Western Nigeria was established. So there were two great takeaways from that reconciliation meeting. Unfortunately, the reconciliation aspect itself did not hold for long. And for me, I keep saying that really the issue is not about the ideology. The issue is not about the policy framework. And if you look at Afenifere, you look at Afenifere Renewal Group, the word Afenifere is still the main component of it, which is that you value goodness for yourself and you value it for others, which is the basis of all the policies that Chief Obafemi Awolowo, since 1951, when he led the government in Western region, really worked upon, supported by leaders like Chief Adekunle Ajasin and all their colleagues of that. Now, so you will see that the essential thing is focusing on education, health, rural development, employment, and all that. And that is the focus. Even today, even if there are differences, we still appreciate that Afenifere will not be Afenifere. Afenifere Renewal Group will not be Afenifere Renewal Group. If they departed from those defined objectives of making welfare of the Yoruba people the main goal of their existence, I think I can rest it there and say that essentially these are groups within groups, but it's also part of the how do you call it, the purification efforts that would always exist in a society when you have people just saying, no, this is not the best way to go, let's do this, and we keep improving as we go on.
Generally, there are so many organizations and bodies in Yoruba land now speaking on various issues, particularly that of national interest. What is the position of ARG within the Yoruba themselves? Have they become the voice of the Yoruba? How influential are ARG? And how do you recruit membership into ARG? All of those in one question.
Well, let me start from the base. ARG is open to members who are Yoruba origin, who are of Yoruba origin, and who believe in the tenets, in the ethics that you must not all exist just about yourself, but that the goodness of other Yoruba people must interest you, that you must be interested in their welfare, in their well-being, and that if you are part of the executive, part of the lawmaking process, that at the back of your mind is the intention or intent to do good, to prioritize, the well-being. And when you talk about well-being, essentially the greatest thing is about education, about health. If these two are granted to any set of human beings, a good education, and they are in a healthy frame of mind, they will keep struggling for good existence, even by themselves. Even when they have bad governments, you will see that they are always on their toes working. So essentially, the body is open to people who believe in the betterment of their fellow Yoruba people. I think it's important to lay that emphasis. Once you are ready to sacrifice a little bit of your time to ensure the upgrade of another Yoruba, that is fine.
Is ARG the loudest voice? Is ARG the loudest voice of the Yoruba presently?
Well, if I say yes, some people will say, yes, you are being immodest. But then the truth is that in being a voice, there are things that you do openly, there are things that you also do behind doors. Like, for instance, looking at policy, having a good critique of policy. That is not something that you always bring to the forefront. And even under various governments, ARG had always been a critic from within, looking at policies, accepting the ones that are beneficial, criticizing those ones that are maybe not in the overall interest of the Nigerian people. We've always done that. But I will say this, that in recent times, the efforts have been really Yoruba people, even if you speak of the larger Nigerian nation, that in the Southwest itself, comprising of the 6 states, and don't forget that you have in Kwara almost 70-80% of Kwarans are of Yoruba origin. You also have maybe 25-30% of Yoruba origin in Kogi. So if you take it along those areas, it is essential that at various times you keep looking at what is going on in those areas in terms of their policies on education, policies on health. I would say that a lot remains to be done. Nobody can deny that, because in the whole of what you call Yoruba speaking areas, a lot remains to be done. A lot can still be done, because as we speak today, you hardly find any of them providing free education. Maybe at best at the primary level, but at the secondary level, if you look back, you will see that education is so vital that up to the age of 16, 17, 18, and most of the time, any child would have passed through secondary education by the time he's 17 or 18. It should have been free. I mean, and when you speak of education now, you are not just talking about academics alone, because if you recall that, I mean, examples to go by, because if you look back, the concept of technical schools, the concept of trader schools were embedded in the education policies of Western region. And so it's not just about academic qualifications alone. Who is in charge of that? Who is doing a lot of that now? I'm talking of the various governments in the Yoruba speaking area. A lot remains to be done. And we speak about this we do call attention to them. But we don't need to take a megaphone to do that. But the thing is, these governments, do they also see themselves as being accountable to their people? That remains to be seen in some states, because the focus that you should have, we are not having them. Here I'm talking of education, I'm talking of health. And people speak, as we speak now, the cost of food is right there. We are having an inflation level of over 34%. But the truth is that it is not the federal that will have a very, very successful agricultural policies at the federating units level. In fact, local governments should be focusing on enabling agriculture, establishing extension units for agriculture, so that they can follow the farmers in the area. But I can tell you that even in Yoruba land, there are some states that don't have extension units in the agri department. And if you don't have it, how do you relate to your farmers? How do you encourage them? And all you hear is that, okay, the federal government gives X bags of fertilizer and the states collect them. But what do they do with it? Do they really give them back to the farmers who need them and guide them to use them appropriately? So you talk about food production. Nobody else can do it for us except at that level. So to that extent, we speak that these governments need to do more in the area of food production. And it's not too late, because it is determining everything now about our life. I mean, every household is talking about the place of the cost of living, cost of food in their lives. So it is to that extent that we have been suggesting to the various state governments that they need not wait for any central government to guide them on the issue of food production, because it is in their hands. And in fact, if the interference that is being alleged that the state governments are having on local governments, if the interference is in the area of food production, then Yoruba people will not be looking elsewhere. In fact, in terms of food security, we will be self-sufficient if we look at that. And I think that is an area that you look at education, you look at health, you look at food production through the Ministry of Agriculture. It's not that they will be the farmers themselves, but how do they encourage the farmers, relate to the farmers? And to do that, you need very, very effective extension units, not located in their state capitals, but in the various respective local government areas. They don't have that now, and we speak about it.
A lot of Yorubas, they think that the problem lies with the federal. And so you have discordant voices, even about the state of the country itself, where groups are now have become separatists. They want to leave Nigeria. And these are Yorubas. And they're allowed in the international space. And yet, I hear you speaking about federalism and the regions and something that is inclusive of everybody else within Nigeria. So where are the majority of Yoruba in terms of remaining in the country or going your different ways out of the frustration of the present situation?
Well, let me say this. You have raised a very fundamental issue regarding the structure of the country. And honestly, I tell you, I've always told my colleagues and those who care to listen, my friends, that the moment a Nigerian head of states gets to Abuja, the issue is in corralling all powers exercising all powers. But the truth is this, that when Nigeria was founded in 1914, from that moment on, you could see a lot of great autonomy operating across the units. Even by 1951, when Obafemi Awolowo took charge in Western region, and his colleagues, Sir Ahmadu Bello and Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, took charge respectively in their respective regions, you will see that it was federation at work. And let me illustrate this, sir. There was a time that the Western region under Obafemi Awolowo had consular relationship with Israel. And the Northern region government under Sir Ahmadu Bello believed that Israel, they will have nothing to do with it. But there were two autonomous regions in Nigeria dealing with whatever facilitated their interests. So in the same way, we believe as we speak that if Nigeria must remain one, must continue to be what it is, there must be autonomous federating units. When you speak of autonomous federating units, you are not talking of a broken relationship. It still accepts that there will be one country called Nigeria. But that each federating unit, and as we speak, we have 36 states created. It cannot be the 36 states that will be the federating unit, because it will be so unwieldy. So we have had this experience before. It is not as if Nigeria is charting an uncharted course. No, we had it before, and we had just 3 regions. Then later on, it was found necessary to create Midwest region. So the argument now is that if we would have autonomous and a great country, that we must go back and agree as to what we have done rightly in the past, and jettison the military entrapment or contraptions that had so much disorganized the structure of the country. And nobody is talking about removing the states. They are already there, they are existing. But federating units must be strong enough, autonomous enough to manage their affairs. And the center, which is Nigeria, must be of a nature that it will only carry out functions that are agreed to by the federating units. Currency, military, there may be federal police, immigration. There will be such specific functions. And the autonomous regions, then research, if I can include that. But the autonomous regions will now be implementing policies that have to do with the welfare of their people, agriculture, education, health, and all that. But what we have now is you have a federal minister of health, federal minister of agriculture, how many? Tens of federal ministries doing things that much more competent, capable units should have been doing below them. So it is this aggregation of power that people like us in Yoruba land are saying we've had enough of. That we've got to a point in which we need to sit down and talk about distribution of power at all levels. I mean, if you clearly look at what is happening now, a federation, you only speak. People will tell you when they want to be, how do you put it now? And they tell you that there is no single federating model anywhere. It is this. But we all know that when you have a true federation, you are speaking only of two levels of governance: the central government, the federating unit government. Anything below the federating unit is taken over by the federating unit. And that also has to do with the functions. You cannot have a central government that is doing everything and then you say you have a federal government. We don't have a federal government as we speak. And it's not even only the Yorubas that are clamoring. Let me say this to you. There have been a long time, even in the north, before the advent of Boko Haram, that people tend to say, yes, we like to have a government that is not entirely secular, that they like to have a religious-backed government. In fact, in the present argument as to whether on this tax reform, I have read interestingly somewhere people talking about, oh, it is against the inheritance of our religion. And I say, yes, there is no reason, for instance, why the federal government should be interested in inheritance tax, or why the federal government should be interested in the collection of VAT, because whether it is VAT, whether it's inheritance tax, we are talking of consumption, and is the federating units is at that level. So what you then are speaking to is the kind of structure that Nigeria should have, that we should have now maybe about 6 max, and they will be determined by Nigerians themselves, because it is Nigerians themselves who will say, yes, I would rather be part of this federating unit. And that should be determined a lot by culture, language, and free will, that I would rather be part of this federating unit. And once you settle that, what are the functions that the federating unit will be willing to give to the central government? And that is why every federating unit, in fact, we need to have a constitution of its own, as we had before. The Western region had its own constitution. The Western region opened a consular office in UK. And that is what was later taken up by the military to say this is the Nigerian High Commission. But that was how effective it is, because that Western region consular office was protecting the interests of Yoruba people, the interests of businesses from our area. And that should continue. There is absolutely no reason that we should have a situation in which even before you drink a cup of water, you have to go to Abuja to get permission. There is absolutely no reason why, for instance, you are talking of revenue generation. That is the federal government that is in charge. The oil producing areas have a right to exploit, have a right to revenue coming from their areas. But what would be important is the taxation, agreed taxation that they pay to the federal government or to the central government. So if that happens with oil, it will happen with all the minerals under the ground. It will happen with a lot of things. And that is an area where the Yoruba people have their minds made up, that let us have autonomous regions strong enough to be able to manage their affairs, determine their visions, implement those visions and missions. And I tell you, sir, that even in the other regions, there was a time that Sir Ahmadu Bello ran the northern region, and their agricultural production was excellent. They did not have to wait for any money from the south for them to run their affairs. They had an education policy that worked, that served their interest. Now, successors of Ahmadu Bello cannot even run a good education policy in their respective terrains. But Sir Ahmadu Bello encouraged people like Adamu Shiroma. They grew up under his wings. Adamu Shiroma was one of the first graduates from the University of Ibadan. But they grew up under the wings of Sir Ahmadu Bello. What is wrong with that now? But because they had that structure, you had autonomous regions. And we must go back to it. If anybody is blocking it, they are only pushing the doomsday forward. It will not work.
Well, there won't be any doomsday. There won't be any doomsday. It is by choice. It is, our collective responsibility to heal this country. Chairman, there's a Yoruba man leading this country today. As the voice of the Yoruba, do you have an agenda within the current state of affairs of this country? Is there a Yoruba agenda?
Well, the Yoruba, you must make a distinction now between the government, the executive, and the Yoruba people.
Of course. I'm talking of the Yoruba people now.
The Yoruba people have always had an agenda which had been worked upon since, in fact, the government of General Babangida, particularly after he acknowledged the election. And the agenda is that the country is due to be restructured. And I have referred to that a little bit earlier.
Yes.
That the country should comprise of autonomous regions and all that. I have also.
Yes.
That is an agenda that subsists and that will remain until it is achieved. Because it is not only the Yoruba that is asking for it. As I was saying earlier, even the North itself is asking for it by saying that we would like to have not a secular form of government, but a religious form of government. In the quest for Sharia-backed rules, laws, and that is fundamental. But the Nigerian Constitution is speaking about secular form of government. So you can see that even across the country, that there are various agendas. That, okay, why can't we have a government that has to do with our mode of worship that is backed by the Holy Book? That is there. They are asking for it without making it. In fact, I always told people when the issue of Boko Haram broke out many years back, that it's a way of saying to Nigerians, we would like to have this type of government. In the same way, we, Yoruba people, would like to have autonomous governments that we can determine what to do with our life, with our education, with our health, with our agricultural production, food security, and with a range of other things. And they are also saying it. Otherwise, you will not have all the insurrections that we are having. I'm not belittling the angst of Nigerians that you are having, Boko Haram, you are having, but they will not have survived for 2 months if there is no belief that, yes, these people might be saying something, that we should have a government that is run according to Islamic jurisprudence. So every Nigerian has an agenda. In our own case, we are asking for that agenda that says there must be autonomous region, and we can take it from there. But having said that, when I speak of Yoruba people, our civilization, even in Afenifere Renewal Group, if you speak today, I'm sure there's some kind of polarity in assessing what the government is doing. People are polarized. Oh, it's our child, it's our son, we must not criticize. And another says, even if it's our son, we must criticize so that we can have the best out of this government. But I can say this to you. When General Buhari was in office, there was not a whiff of criticism or opposition from the whole of the North. Not a whiff. So, but you look at when General Obasanjo was in office as president, when Jonathan was in office as president, what you will find is that there is a struggle by these presidents to show that they are more Nigerian than they are. I mean, I want to put it the real way, that they are more Nigerian than they are. So we must protect the Nigerian nation. We must make sure that this restructuring people are talking of is not carried out, because the Nigerian nation must be very strong, must be this, must override all the federating units. But that will not help in the long term the Nigerian nation. Because for as long as you keep having these various agendas that define peculiar interests of the federating units across the country, they should be looked into. So it is to that extent that even in terms of advisory for the president who is there now, and everybody regards as Yoruba, but I will say to my mind that you can also see the urge to say this is Nigerian nation. This is so you must make it stronger. Otherwise, some of the policies that we are having are almost strengthening the concepts of unitarization than federalization. So that much, to that extent, I would say that we should learn a lesson. I'm sure General Obasanjo must be doing certain decisions today in the same way that Jonathan will be doing certain decisions today. So the president, who is Yoruba now, has a lot to learn from those two, and something also to learn from his immediate predecessor, so that they can model the Nigeria that we are talking of, along with the interests of the federating units. He must agree that there are federating units in this country, and that their interests differ from one another because of culture, language. That there is no country in the world where you have the kind of diversity that we have in Nigeria that survives on the basis of unitarization. There is none. There will continue to be all sorts of push, all sorts of push. We cannot, a country that will grow, that will develop, cannot be pushing and pulling all the time.
Okay, Chairman, just listening to you, it would appear that, the principles that you have espoused are simple. They are simple enough. And everybody should understand it, and everybody should embrace it, and they should do it like that. But they are not. They are not. So, and at the socio-cultural level, I'm not talking politics now. Are we having these conversations? Because this is not about government. These conversations across the borders of our nationality, like the ARG, meeting with the Ohanese regularly, meeting with the Arewa Consultative Forum. Probably, is that not where the fault lines are? That the conversations across these boundaries are not going on enough? I'm just asking.
Well, I mean, I must thank you for that question. Actually, when I listened to the program of last week.
Just 1 second before you answer, sir. We have a call. I would like to take one caller, and then, you will come back and give us that response. Hello. Hello. Okay, the call has ended. So go ahead, sir.
So speaking about collaboration along the various nationality groups, I think that would be a good way to go. I agree entirely, it would be a good way to go. Actually, Afenifere initiated that process at a time. I think with the Southeast Ohanese, with the South-South, at a time it was initiated. Unfortunately, it became embroiled in electoral politics because at a time they had to take a decision as to whether to support somebody or not, rather than looking at the issues of what should we do to the structure of the country that will make it better to run. That effort took place before. You see, over time, whether you are speaking of Arewa Consultative Forum and some other northern groups, across the country, if you take a census of ideas and all that, you probably get away with the impression, except a few people. I will want to count myself as being lucky to be in that group who has had the opportunity of meeting firsthand some of the leaders from the North, whether on the political plane or social or business plane. You find that having a communication with ACF, there's always that belief that ACF is acting on the basis that whatever we say is the superior argument. And so they also, that may not be facilitating the kind of contacts that should be existing between groups. If, for instance, take the issue of the tax bill, let's not go into the merits and demerits or the merits of the. But if you have a statement like, it cannot go on like that, it will not go, we will not. Once you have that, nobody wants to have any kind of discussion, because already it's like it is what we want that must prevail in this country. No, nobody. In fact, we got to a stage now that there must be genuine consultations. Not that you raise it, maybe efforts should be made across boards, but certainly in this country, we are talking of federation, we are talking of people who have diverse language, diverse religion, diverse culture. There is certainly no room for any group, no matter their population, no matter that they have the reins of government and they think that they can destabilize any government or make any government go, or they control the military. No matter. You keep saying that it must be our view. It cannot be. It should not be. It will not be. So that is the kind of things that may have been discouraging engagements. I saw that you asked this question last week. And I must say this, that the leaders of thought should start thinking about it. It is necessary that the country should be talking to one another. But it's not about we are the superior. No. You know, human beings, we are a good example. We were created by God. But if you stamp just your toe, it's one of the simplest things, on the stone, the whole body will feel the pain. So let the body say, I'm the bigger, the heart. No, you just the toe, or you have a big blow on your little finger. So, and that applies to nationhood. That there is no where you have various nationalities comprising one nation. No matter the superiority or the supremacy that may exist, that little toe can provide the pain that will unsettle the whole nation. And that is why maybe you are a great mathematician, a great footballer, you are known all across the country, you may provide a platform. No, honestly, I'm serious here.
Well, you heard Murtala Ali.
You were born in Jos, you speak Hausa like any other person. You have your friends cut across. Maybe people like us are too parochial, we are limited by our relationships. You may start a process, a platform of discussion. I mean it. That
Aliu Murtala Ali last week accepted my unofficial invitation to come and have a conversation with the sociocultural groups in Yoruba land, particularly ARG. Isn't that a first step, sir? But, beyond that, you mentioned something about religion. And I know something, I grew up in the North and I came to the South. And what I saw in the South, I think should be modeled. Religion in Yoruba land, how is it managed? Where, everybody is doing their own stuff, and education, which is a concern for them in the North, for example, in the Southwest, there's all kinds of, there's Western education, there's the Quranic education, everything is going on. In the Southwest, we don't have problem of gender equality. The women have almost equal rights as the men and so on. It's like the Southwest, the Yoruba, have something that is functional, that is working, or a formula for these things that have become almost intractable in other parts of the country, and in fact in other parts of the world. Shouldn't we now calmly start to let people understand, how strong the institutions we have, the experiences that exist in Yoruba land are, rather than fighting, which is probably where we may be going? Just explain to me. I don't know if I made any sense, but how have we managed religion in the Southwest that we don't have any problem with it? We manage education, no problem with it. We're managing all this, girl child education, and no problem with it. We should be a model.
Well, I wouldn't push that argument, but honestly speaking, religion, as it is managed in the Southwest, well, it's on the basis that we believe in the supremacy of the Almighty God, which is to say that the Almighty God, if you listen to the traditionalists, praise the Almighty God, Olodumare, Todaye, Todaorun. That is the overall that created the heaven and the earth. And then you look at the Christians, they also believe that it is that same God. The Muslims, I'm a Muslim, that there is only one God that created the heaven and the earth. But the difference is that while the Yoruba people believe that it is that great God that needs to be worshipped through the various agents that he created.
Some don't believe in God and they are not ostracized. I'm saying everything is acceptable.
And some don't believe as well.
Yes.
But because the truth is that even if you take the Christian module, the Muslim module, there is a place, I think, in Christianity that says the sins of the father or the holiness of the father cannot save the child. Something like that. And the Muslims also believe that it is you communicating with God yourself.
So my question is, how is it managed in Yoruba land? In the
South? Because the family system takes hold of that concept that you are a Muslim, you are a Christian, you are a traditionalist. Within this family, we are the same. We are one and the same. And that your own religion or your own purity before God is different from mine. We worship God. Yours cannot save me, mine cannot save you. So we all agree. So for that reason, Christmas, we were all together with the Christians. In fact, there is no home where you will not be together. And during celebrations, you will find everybody coming together. Whether it is during Salah period, the Christians will come. During Christmas, the Muslims will come. During other family festivities, everybody will gather. I think that it is the family unit now that is stronger, that is not being used in terms of the religion. Maybe my explanation is not really conveying what I want, but the family bond is that we are one in this family. And since your own holiness cannot cure me, mine can't cure you. So you are free to do what you want to do. And I think the issue of secularity that is being, my own argument had always been that the people must be free to practice their religion. They want the way they want to practice it. But we have built a world in which now nobody can say that, okay, you are a Christian, don't come to this domain. The only thing is that we must respect one another.
Final words, let me thank you for providing this platform for nationality groups and associations. And thank you also, because I know you are doing it to enhance building of the nation. We all believe that Nigeria would be a great country if we all mutually respect one another. That Nigeria will be a great nation if we allow the federating units, the autonomous regions, to be ambitious, to aspire to build their institutions, to enable the education of their respective members in the society, citizens in the society, that it will be a great nation when, of course, each department, each federating unit, each governments across board, if they believe that they have to be equitable in providing for the needs of Nigerians. But certainly, Nigeria, a great Nigeria, would have no place to any dominating nationality, to any domineering nationality.
Okay.
But and I think finally, sir, let me say this, that if you have autonomy in respect of each region, I keep going back to the issue of autonomy. Each region will determine their priorities, and they will grow. They will grow their industry. They will grow their agric. I mean, within this same country, there was a time you speak of food production, you know where to go. You speak of, we would rely on one another. That is what makes a great country. Not one in which all that has to happen is political domination. It will not work. Thank you.
As we go into 2025, we are going into 2025. We know the state of affairs of the country. Help us project, what do you see 2025 and beyond from everything that is going on? What do you see?
Well, it also, what I see ahead is that, of course, if you look at this day, I mean, the president was selected as the man of the year on the basis that this is a courageous leader who believes in what he's doing. So to that extent, I would say that that would also help that decisions, cutting decisions, may sometimes have to be taken. But I would also say that for Nigerians, it would help also after or in taking decisions that may hurt, for a general reflection on how to modulate the pain, also using policy as the leg work. I mean, every Nigerian, I can say this, supports the removal of fuel subsidy for the simple reason that for many years it's been in the air that, okay, some cartel is denying Nigeria its gains. So fine, but removing it has created its own pain. It has provided its own pain in the foot, in the hands, all over the body. So what then are the ameliorating policies that will loosen the tides? I mean, so what I then see, speaking as a Nigerian, is that yes, courageous decisions would have to be taken for the country to grow, for the country to develop. But at the same time, it is only living Nigerians that would appreciate those courageous decisions. So it would be good also that as we move ahead in taking courageous decisions, we also ensure that there are policies. I'm not talking of palliatives now. In fact, if the sheer amount of funds going into palliatives have been channeled to primary education, every Nigerian will benefit. Or to providing midday meals in every secondary school in Nigeria, there will be no Nigerian that will not benefit. So we have to really critically look at these things. It's not about distribution of palliatives. I mean, a lot of that has been done. But at government level, at governance level, these huge resources of funds that are now coming in through the removal of subsidy can be used to subsidize education, to subsidize health, because these two, to encourage farmers to remain in food production so that people don't keep migrating to nothing, because they migrate to the cities, there is nothing for them to do. So farmers must be encouraged to remain on the farm. So if we channel our excess revenue, money made from, if we channel it to backing education, to backing health, and to backing food production, every Nigerian will benefit, not distribution of palliatives.
Okay. Honorable Olawale Oshun, former Chief Whip of the Federal House of Representatives, Chairman of the Afenifere Renewal Group, big businessman these days, a farmer. Anyway, I want to use this opportunity to thank you very much for coming on the show. I had 20 questions lined up to ask you. We asked only 5 of those 20. So it's just a reflection, the reflection of how agitated people are to find answers to so many questions about the state of Nigeria.
Ọmọ Yorùbá ẹ jí gìrì, ẹ jẹ́ ká gba òmìnira tiwa. Ọmọ Yorùbá ẹ jí gìrì, ẹ jẹ́ ká gba òmìnira tiwa. Òmìnira ni Yorùbá fẹ́ o nílẹ̀ bàbá wa. Òmìnira ni Yorùbá fẹ́ o nílẹ̀ bàbá wa. Ọmọ aláṣọ ò gbọ́dọ̀ wá kìsà, ọmọ ẹlẹ́ran ò gbọ́dọ̀ jẹ́gun. Ọmọ Yorùbá ẹ jí gìrì, ẹ jẹ́ ká gba òmìnira tiwa. Ọmọ Yorùbá ẹ jí gìrì, ẹ jẹ́ ká gba òmìnira tiwa. Òmìnira ni Yorùbá fẹ́ o nílẹ̀ bàbá wa. Òmìnira ni Yorùbá fẹ́ o nílẹ̀ bàbá wa. ọmọ aláṣọ ò gbọ́dọ̀ wá kísà, ọmọ ẹlẹ́ran ò gbọ́dọ̀ jẹ́gun. Ẹ̀yin àgbààgbà ilẹ̀ Oòduà, ẹ jẹ́ ká forí korí. Gbogbo ọ̀dọ́ ilẹ̀ bàbá wa, lọ́mọdé làgbà lóbìnrin lọ́kùnrin, òmìnira la fẹ́. Ọmọ Oòduà kí lẹ fẹ́ o? Yorùbá nation ni o. Kéku lè ké bí eku, ẹyẹ lè ké bí ẹyẹ, a ò bẹ́nikẹ́ni lọ kàdá dúró la fẹ́. Olúkálùkù dájọ́ orúkọ bàbá rẹ̀ lórí ilẹ̀ wa o. Ẹ ò bá lẹ́gùn bàbá ní òjò bí ó sì jó mọ́ bàbá nìkan ò lè mú ní sí. Àló ti tó gẹ́ ẹ ò ṣe mọ́. Ìrẹ́nijẹ èyí ti tó gẹ́, ìfìyàjẹni ti tó gẹ́, ikú ọmọdé ikú ọ̀dọ́ a ò fẹ́ mọ́ nílẹ̀ bàbá wa. A fẹ́ kí èdè wa ó di pàtàkì gúnlé. A ò fẹ́ ètò ìjọba tipátipá mọ́. Gbogbo ẹ̀yin ọ̀jẹ̀lú ọ̀bàlújẹ́ ènìyàn yìí ẹ kó ráńgà yín ẹ máa lọ. Ká lè fúnra wa ní ètò ààbò tó péye lórílẹ̀ bàbá wa. Ìyà tá a jẹ tó lọ́wọ́ àwọn ará òkè ọ̀hún, ìfipábánilò yìí a ò fẹ́ mọ́. Bíbani ní nǹkan oko jẹ́, dídá ẹ̀mí àwọn àgbẹ̀ légbodò ó ti sún wa. A kì í bá ní tán ká fani nítàn ọ̀ya, ẹ jẹ́ a máa lọ ká lọ gbòmìnira tiwa. Òmìnira.